And we're live in 3, 2.
Let me just get this.
And welcome everybody to another episode of the Planet Mullins podcast. I am thrilled today to have as a repeat guest, my very first guest on my very first podcast show back in 2020, the phenomenal smooth jazz pianist, Carol Albert from Atlanta. Hi, Carol.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I mean, I just was listening to your new album project, and it's called Magic Mirror. And if you don't know about Carol's music, she's basically just crushing the top of the charts all the time. I mean, she was the first artist to come on my podcast show that got over 1 million spins on Spotify on it was either the last project or 2 projects ago. And that, what was the name of that album that was about summer, perfect summer?
Stronger now.
Stronger Now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, actually, you're thinking about Perfect Sunday. Yeah, you would think summer. It feels like summer.
Well,
Sunday.
yeah, Perfect Sunday.
It's up to 7 million right now.
It's up to what?
7 million almost. It's like 6 million, almost to 7.
Wow. And that's something too we'll come back to, as far as because I know you're with a major label in jazz, and there's probably like splits with all that money and stuff. But
no, I have my own label. No, I'm not with a label.
Oh, I thought you were with Mark Nordum and Woodruff. Oh, so you get to keep all the money.
Well, I get to do all the work.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. I tell you, it's overwhelming. Sometimes it can be, but because it's always something. Oh, I need to do that. Being self-employed, the musician of today, being self-employed, and there's nobody else doing things for you. It's like, okay, well, I need to do this, and but the rewards are greater, but at the same time, the work is greater too.
Well, I noticed just kind of as a, I don't know, I'm single and I don't have any kids, so I can only relate as an observer. But just the fact that you have a family and you were the head of the Atlanta Grammy chapter, and then you hire all these people and you write all the songs, and now you're running your own label. It's just kind of a miraculous thing to watch you just keep on kicking everybody's butt, actually. It's kind of cool.
Well, the perception is everything, Rob. Sometimes my friends, say, my personal friends that I've known for a long time, hey, man, it looks like you're having a great time. And it's like, well, perception is everything. There's a lot that goes on just in real life, day to day, going to the grocery, and it can be overwhelming, and people don't understand that. There's the glory side, and then there's the grunt side, and there's probably more of the grunt side than the glory side. And I think that people don't really kind of realize that. But I did start my own little label because I did have a record deal like you did back in the 90s, and it didn't end very well, and I decided to, instead of, searching for a label, to do my own thing, and it's worked out.
Wow, amazing. That's so great. Well, I would have to say that, everything that you're discussing right here is 100% true, because I know a lot of artists and comedians and actors and painters and dancers and folks in the artistic community, and what most of them have to say echoes your sentiment, which is what you see on my Facebook is, the 1% of the time where everything goes right at the gig, and all the players learned the music, and the PA didn't blow up, and the lighting didn't fall out of the sky and hit you in the head.
The players showed up.
Players showed up on time, and then you got paid at the end of the gig instead of chasing the club owner down the back alley. And it's a lot of, you're right, it's a lot of work. And the thing that just really determines people's success in a lot of ways is just the determination factor and that regular day to day getting up and going, okay, I've got to manage all the bills. I have to pay my taxes. I'm doing my 1099s. I have all this mail coming in. I have 60 emails on Facebook, and there's somebody on there that I don't remember meeting them in the 80s, but I'm really hoping that they don't have my DNA somewhere in their house. But let's dive into the album. So you use a pretty specific team album to album, I noticed. And on this album, Magic Mirror, which is your latest, you've got a production team of Paul Brown, Roberto Valli, and you. So it's instead of it being Paul Brown producing, now you've got a team of 3 people. So how is it different when you have 3 people producing?
Well, actually, the way that worked, Rob, is Paul Brown produced 5 of the tunes,
Mm,
and Roberto and I co-wrote some tunes.
okay.
Paul and I and another writer co-wrote a few tunes that he produced. And so we never actually, the 3 of us, produced it together.
Oh, I see.
Roberto and I co-produced several of the tunes together, and did some co-writing. I did My Stronger Now is completely written by myself. I wrote all of the compositions and lyrics, and this time, and I think it's interesting to branch out. I worked with other writers, and I've got my first Billboard #1 hit from the one that I worked with Paul Brown and Shane Thoreau. Shane, worked with Daryl and Oates.
Hall and Oates.
Hall and Oates, yeah, Daryl, yeah, sorry.
That's Hall and
And
Oates as opposed to Hall and Ass. Sorry for obscure Southern
but a
address.
lot of, and many other, and I think a project he worked on is also up for the Grammys too. But I don't really personally know him, but it's always interesting because they'll do a chord progression. It's like, well, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Hmm.
But it was a great experience. I think I came up with a great product, and I wrote some of them myself as well. Gemini Sun and Angels Watching Over Me. There's several that I wrote, as
Well,
well.
it's got a this one to me in comparison to the previous release, it seems a little more laid back and kind of soulful with a little sexy yet spiritual twinge in there, if that makes sense.
Uh, well, I'm not really sure. I mean, I can't be very objective. I can't be objective. It is what it is. But there's a
Well,
couple of them that are a little bit more upbeat, a little more electronic, like The Chase is more electronic on this album than my previous. It's kind of
right,
pretty
and
upbeat.
I'm gonna file a copyright thing because you stole my title from my album in 2011.
Oh no, which one? The Chase?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, if you
it
go on
happens.
no, I know, but if you go on to Sound Exchange, this was a real and you put in your title, you will
Yeah,
see 2 pages, no matter how unique you think it is, of the same
right,
title.
right.
It's
Yeah,
like
that's true.
it's like my name. I thought my name was unique. You go on and you put your name in Google, and there's like, 500. It's there's really, I don't know, it's hard to be unique anymore.
Well, the internet has kind of shrunk. It's expanded, but it's shrunk everything, which is crazy. Now, going through the album, one of the things that I thought was a little different is I believe it's on Fire and Water. I hear some female background singing. Is that you?
Yeah, I like to use, and on my previous albums, I like to use my voice as kind of an instrument, and just some background vocals. On Fire and Water, actually, I did the high part, and Roberto, who also sings, but he never does, he's scatting on his latest single that's coming out, but
Oh,
uh, I encouraged him to do that. But it's I like to use the voice as an instrument.
Yeah,
And
it reminded me when it first got going, it reminded me, I was like, is this going to be like Ramsey Lewis with Sun Goddess, where he's got that thing, and then everybody's like,
oh,
way oh, but it's really a nice flavor, and some of the titles are pretty interesting. I mean, the one that well, groove wise, the one that I really like the best, because I'm such a sucker for a bossa nova, is Sol Ipanema. I could listen to
yeah,
that song all day. That's great.
yeah, that's yeah. I can't say that they're all my favorites. You know, when I think about one, I go, oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. Yeah, that Roberta and I co-wrote that one together.
Okay.
It's a little bit more Latin tinged, but uh, so it was a struggle to pick my next single. So going out, whether it's Soli Panema or whether it's the title track Magic Mirror, and we kind of settled on Magic Mirror in March
Right.
because it's the title track and already have a video for it. So, but
Okay.
you know, hopefully Soli Panema will make it to a single.
Well, it's that's excuse me, one of those things where now people can just put it on repeat on Apple Music, which is what I'm going to do, because bossa novas always get me fired up, and my biggest hits,
You don't?
for a white guy, all of my biggest hits are Latin tunes,
Oh
and a
yeah.
lot of people don't realize that. Yeah, bossa novas, sambas, um, tangos, and I think it was because when I was a kid, I was a drummer first, and I took these classes from Bill Douglas, who was the president of the LA Musicians Union, and he made me learn every Latin rhythm just on a snare
Wow.
drum, so I'd know how to do those. But now going back to the whole idea of running your own label and doing all that work, I mean, obviously, to have 7 million plays on Spotify, the natural question is, did you hire someone to help you promote? Because I know that there are like verified, legit Spotify promoters that you can pay. And I know there's a lot of scammers and robots out there too. So,
Yeah, right. Well, I hired a promoter to assist with the radio promotion, which helps, get on to Billboard and through Sirius XM and those um, those types of outlets. In terms of Spotify, my Spotify page just kind of sat there for a while, and
mhm.
they started this thing where you can, when you put an album out or a single, you can pitch one tune on the album. So I just did my own thing. I just pitched Perfect Sunday. I thought, okay, it's a long shot. It's my favorite, so I'll just do it. And
Well,
um,
for somebody who's wanting to do something like that, like a new artist, by pitch it, you mean
well,
what
it's like they said,
exactly?
you can pitch this song, but and go to this link and you put in, it's a form. It's
Oh,
not like you get in front of somebody and, it's it's like filling out any kind of application.
oh,
It's like which is basically what it is, an application. But you put the title and what you think about it and why you think, uh, I can't remember what it asked, but I just filled out the questions and submitted it.
wow.
And then it was about 3 months later, I think, that said, Joseph, who helps me with my Joseph Patrick Moore, sent me a text that, hey, you were added to a Spotify playlist. And it's like, well, what does that mean?
Hmm.
Um, they do have their legitimate, I guess, in-house Spotify,
Promoters.
whatever they are, gurus. Everybody knows who they are. If we did, we'd all be at their front door. And I didn't pay anybody. I didn't do anything.
Wow.
And I haven't paid anybody for Spotify. People say, well, who are you? How are you getting on these playlists? It's like, I don't know. The grace of God, I guess.
Well, I mean,
You know,
part of it is what you just shared about filling out the form, but before we started recording today, and we were just discussing things in general, we were talking about this trend of just exactly that. And there was one person that came on my podcast, I think in season 2, and it was pretty hilarious because I had put the YouTube up, as I always do. I do a YouTube and then I put it out on the podcast, just the audio, to other places. And within about 2 hours, that guest had 10,000 10,000 likes on the YouTube. And I'm thinking to myself,
Oh,
wait a minute, this can't be right, because even or with what they call organic reach, and marketing world, there's like paid reach and bot reach and fake reach and organic reach. Even with organic reach, that wasn't going to happen. So I actually never said anything to that guest, but I went and I started looking up all of the internet information about that, and it turns out that like 9,000 of those likes were all from some data center in India. So I thought to
well,
myself, well, that's not really very organic, but whatever it takes. Because I think now, because of all the challenges that we face just as artists, however you can legally get yourself out there, more power to people, because it's a very I hate to use this word, but in a lot of ways, it's a really dismal, discouraging climate for a lot of people, because all the markets are oversaturated. Spotify pays 0.0042 cents per spin. And
I think it's
I
like one
remember,
cent every 10 spins.
yeah, I mean, it's ludicrous. And I'm one of those people that came up, I think we're within a decade of being the same age. And I remember being in the band room in high school and the director saying, I hate marching bands so much. And I wish that every time that we went and did a jazz concert, that the football team would come perform at all of our breaks, because all the money goes to the football players, and everybody's got to march around and go, glory to the athletes and all that stuff. And in a broader sense, and just, tell me to shush when you want to interrupt me, but in a broader sense, you have these guys like Bill Gates and Amazon and Zuckerberg over at Facebook. And I mean, Bill Gates at Microsoft and Bezos at Amazon and Zuckerberg at Facebook. Why are they not funding art in the school programs to the tens of billions of dollars? Because what usually they do is they start their own little charity thing, and then they use the charity to dump all of their extra money in, and they write it off as a tax deduction. But it could be much better if they would say, okay, well, Carol Albert is an icon in the Atlanta community. Let's give Carol $2 million this year, because $2 million is nothing to them. And
Also,
let's
no.
let Carol start a jazz education program
Right.
and take that around. Because also, when I was a kid, they had a thing called the Music Performance Trust Fund, which was a union funded thing. And they would pick a jazz band, and you go to all 9 high schools with the band. And then the next quarter, they're all 9 high schools with another band. Now, why isn't that happening now when it's especially so needed? I mean, I know you're an educator. Do you have any thoughts on music education right now?
Uh, well, yeah, I do have a lot of thoughts about it. And I don't really have a solution or an answer. I think we all know that music really is so vital. It humanizes us. It's the universal language. It's an enormous amount of social problems with violence and drugs and depression and anxiety with kids as young as 5 years old.
Right.
I see that a huge difference in even my private students from when I was teaching, back when I first started to teaching now, just the amount, I mean, and it's not saying anything about my students who I teach is a general, there's a higher level of anxiety. There's
Oh,
there's a higher level of stress. And music can really provide such an outlet for those things. But instead of having music programs, they have, I don't know what they have, but it's it's an enormous focus. And I was just talking to my friend Paula Atherton about that on Sunday, and we were talking about, that music provides discipline. There's so many things you have to play an instrument. You have to you have to learn discipline. You have to learn, it gives you something to love. It nurtures your soul and your spirit. And it's, there's so many positives, but I can't tell you why, society thinks it's so unimportant.
I agree with you, and I have one of the quirky things about my composing process is that I like to have sports on the television in the background with a sound off when I write. And I've been that way since like the early 80s. Like if I have the LA Lakers playing a game and I have the sound off and I've got my coffee and I have my keyboard on the coffee table, that's great. And I write all this music. But now in the State Farm commercials, they started this about 6 months ago, where they have, Jake, the State Farm guy, and then they have Chris Paul from the Phoenix Suns. And they have a goofy, really awful looking jazz guy with a saxophone come into the commercial. And then they start making fun of jazz in the commercial. And I mean, I'm just going, what? Because jazz and hip hop are related, and rap music,
Right.
it all kind of comes from the same DNA as far as just the sonic part of it and the roots of it, not the social and the politics and the stuff that gets said over the top of it. But just think, if those guys had a really great sax player come up there, like Gerald Albright, somebody like that come on there, and Gerald would go, yeah, man, I use State Farm to insure my horns when I come to the games
I know.
because I don't want to get. I mean,
You
there
know,
are
you know the answer to that, Rob. Some
what?
20 kid wrote that. So the answer to that is it was one of the 20-year-olds writing the script. They're
Yeah,
who's writing, the scripts. I've got a friend, the original voice of Siri, Susan Bennett, and she just talks about that all the time. She's been doing, professional, very professional voiceovers for years and years, things
uh-huh.
like, Atlanta Transit, voiceovers, and national commercials. And she said it's so frustrating, they get these scripts that aren't even written. I mean, they're written, nobody knows how to write. I mean, these young kids are writing this stuff. They don't know how to write. They really have no clue what generally works. And they put out this awful stuff. And she goes, she says, me and the producer are sitting here trying to edit the script so that it's readable. She talks about that all the time. And that's
Wow.
exactly what that. But the thing is, Rob, uh, you know, jazz music and, you had folk music, country music, those are the two staples of American music. And country music has sort of managed to stay in favor of the American society, but jazz led to, the street jazz, and led to so much of what's popular today, of what's really, it was just uh, the staple of uh, that grew into
The culture.
Elvis and
Oh
on.
yeah.
I mean, I name it all. Just kind of grew and developed, and like you said, hip hop, and uh,
That's the
so
roots of all of it. Jazz is really the roots of all of it. And what I've told my students all these years is that if you learn how to play jazz, you can play pretty much any other kind of music, because jazz overqualifies you for, doing pop music and things like, having a 1 6 2 5 progression that just goes over and over and over. And that's another thing that I just feel sad about, because music education was such an important tool for just keeping me out of trouble. Because when I was young and had that kind of energy, I was very likely to act up and play practical jokes and get in trouble. And we both know Roberto Valli never does any practical jokes, and Roberto never gets in trouble ever.
No, he is the king jokester. He loves it. He has that natural personality. I think you have to be born with it. He is definitely uh, likes to have and it's actually refreshing. He, to just live in the moment, to have a good sense of humor, and it kind of gets you through life, I think, to have. I mean, sometimes I'm very serious, and I think having just a good sense of humor about it all is kind of really can, at the end of the day, what get you through, a lot of things. But
So true.
yeah,
That's so true,
it,
because that as a society, that's one of the things that we lost in the last few years, is the ability, especially the ability to laugh at ourselves.
right,
And
right, just the ability, even the ability to agree to disagree, or to even have a debate. What happened to debates? When you'd shake each other's hand at the beginning and shake each other's hand at the end. Nobody hated the other person because of what you said. And it's, or to have an opinion. So those are all, you know, things that I think we've really lost. We've lost the human touch
yeah,
and
well,
lost our
the thing about it
humanity.
too, as veterans now, I'd say both of us are veterans in the music business. The best thing that we can do is what we're doing, which is to release music that has that kind of positive spirit encapsulated in it, because music reaches people in a way on all these different kinds of levels, and is really super powerful in unseen, unknown dimensions. And I'm not trying to go to outer space on you, but I know that it's really true, because there's a lot of my music has been used by hospitals, for people in the cancer ward, and churches. And that's another thing, the decline of the church and the family unit in society in America and around the world. And I just think that I want you to keep on putting out these good vibe albums. And I'm glad that you're able to get some money coming back in. And now, as far as live gigs, are you going to tour to promote this? Are you playing around Atlanta, or what's happening?
Yeah, I have some shows set up, and currently booking some more inquiries. So yeah, I'm working on that, getting more of those. And that's another thing, just another casualty of the music industry, is just there aren't as many venues.
Right.
So, you have more artists than venues, of course, and then it's supply and demand, and that whole game there. But I have some things set up, and looking forward to hitting it on those.
Cool. Well, I'm super happy and proud and thrilled to know you. And if you have any trouble, outside these venues, Roberto and I can, we'll show up and we'll take care of business. Make sure you
Oh,
get in
well,
there and get out. And
that's
then
good to
before we run out of time, I want to just remind everybody, this is a brand new album by smooth jazz keyboardist Carol Albert. It's called Magic Mirror. It's on the charts now. It's on Billboard. It'll be around a long time. And thanks again for coming on the show, Carol. This is exciting. My very
Thanks,
first
Melissa.
guest and first repeat appearance. So good seeing you
You.
today. And I'll be putting all the stuff in the YouTube description about the album and where people can find you and all that. Okay.
Thank you, Rob. It's
All
always great
right.
talking to you. All
Always
right.
great talking
Well,
to you too. And that's going to do it for today's episode of the Planet Mullins podcast, everybody. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.
okay.